Get away from her, you
G'day guys, Happy New Year and welcome to 2026. I hope you managed to get some sort of a break and recharge those batteries. I'm predicting big things for you and your modelling this year, so without delay, let's take a look at some of the announcements that caught my eye in the hope that I can show you something you might have missed. Not a kit as such, but a range of diorama accessories, and they came from our friends at AK Interactive. Now hear me out here, the thought of paying for essentially rocks in a pot may seem absurd to some. However, having access to different rock types and graded sizes and colours can be extremely handy and takes all the guesswork out of the whole landscaping process. Now, not only have they released a range of stones and pebbles, but they are also making 3D printed elements such as these bamboo sticks. Now, VMS have a similar range of graded material, which is something I love. So to have another option here is going to be really handy for all you diorama modelers out there. Now, Meng is a company most of you would be fairly familiar with, and December saw them extend their range of 72nd scale armour to see the Porsche turret, as well as the more common Henschel turreted King Tiger, make its way onto the shelves of your local hobby shop. Meng seem to be putting a lot of energy into this small scale, and from what I understand, the kits are accessible to modelers of most skill levels without compromising on details and quality. So to see the iconic tanks available in this range comes as a welcome addition. Now, whilst Meng have released both turret types here, it is the Porsche turret version I'm drawn to the most. That is the turret that has the more rounded profile and saw only around 50 units produced. Interestingly though, Porsche had absolutely nothing to do with the actual turret design or the manufacture, and it was in fact designed and produced by Krupp for a Porsche hull design that never saw it past the prototype stage. The turret's premature production run could be repurposed and used on the actual approved Henschel hull design, creating an interesting variation on the tank we know today as the King Tiger. Late war Soviet armour gives us a unique opportunity to execute techniques and generally have some fun with bashing our models up and expanding our palette with painting and weathering of these models, which is why I love this next release, and that is the JS2 from RyeField model. Now, RyeField model have dipped their toes into the water with the KV series of tanks, which have been fairly well received by all accounts, but this is the first of the super heavies in their range. The JS2 is also known as the IS2 or the Joseph Stalin, and it was a late war Soviet heavy tank introduced in 1944 to counter the German Tigers and Panthers. Armed with a powerful 122mm gun, it combined a thick, sloped armour with devastating firepower, making it especially effective in breakthrough and urban fighting sort of scenarios. The JS2 spearheaded the Red Army's offensives in 1944 and 45, most famously during the Battle of Berlin, where its ability to destroy bunkers and heavy armour proved decisive. Though its large gun had a slower rate of fire, the JS2 became a symbol of Soviet heavy armour dominance at the end of World War II. Detail around this kit is fairly sparse, however, if the recent run of RyeField kits is anything to go by, this one should be a goodie. Now, I'm far from an expert around the Harrier, but I think the GR3 and the AV-8B Harrier 2 are two of the most attractive jets around, and paired with the good rap that this Uma model kit received when it was first released, I felt compelled to include this one on the list. The AV-8B Harrier 2 is a second generation vertical takeoff attack jet developed for the US Marine Corps, featuring a larger wing, improved avionics and a greater payload than earlier Harriers. Now, it entered service in the 1980s and it proved its value in conflicts from the Gulf War to Iraq and Afghanistan before being replaced by the F-35B. Now, although this release is promoting new parts, I suspect that it may well be an alternative decal sheet from that initial release, so I guess time will tell. But after hearing the build experiences and seeing some of the finished kits of that initial release, I'll be keeping my eye out for this new one, and I'm pretty sure I'll be adding it to the stash for a rainy day. Now, love them or hate them, the Tiger 1 is still one of the most recognisable and infamous tanks in the history of the world. And it's not like we don't have a plethora of options when it comes to Tigers. However, this release intrigued me because of the manufacturer. After a bit of digging, I found this about the manufacturer. In essence, Verifier and Beaver Corporation are two different entities. Verifier provides high-end, feature-rich model kits aimed at serious hobbyists. They often incorporate modern 3D printing for the intricate parts, and in the past they've focused on 1/350th and 1/700th scale Japanese warships. Now, Beaver Corporation, however, is the importer, distributor, and brings that skill set to the table in this collaboration, so they're not actually the same company. It seems like a pretty brave thing to do to go up against some of the more established brands with a full interior Tiger, but the Tiger is one of those tanks that always seems to sell and never fails to show up on the display tables around the world. Given the reputation that Verifier has, it will be interesting to see exactly what this full interior Tiger is going to look like. Now, who else out there saw and loved the Tom Hanks movie Greyhound? In Greyhound, the ship commanded by Tom Hanks's character is the USS Keeling DD-548. It's a fictional Fletcher-class destroyer. Now, while Keeling herself never existed, she's portrayed as a typical early war Fletcher, and that is probably the thing that drew me to this model release. Over 175 ships were built between 1941 to 1944, and they served in every major US naval theatre, from the Atlantic convoy battles to the Pacific island hopping campaign. Now, they were valued for their balance of speed, firepower, range, and survivability. I Love Kit is a Chinese manufacturer that came out in the late 2010s and quickly gained attention for producing highly detailed modern tooling kits, particularly in 35th scale armour and 48th scale aircraft. The brand is closely associated with and often thought of as the sister company of Trumpeter and Hobby Boss, sharing a similar engineering philosophy and tooling standards, so take that for what it's worth. The Firefly has been on my radar ever since reading the James Holland novel Brothers in Arms. Now, that's a story that follows the Sherwood Rangers from the D-Day landings to the German surrender. Now, I recall when the Fireflies arrived on the scene, they didn't really know how to use them or what to do with them, and they were kind of held back on a lot of occasions. However, the Firefly could not be denied for its firepower and effectiveness against the German heavy armour. The British Firefly saw the US M4 Sherman fitted with the powerful 17-pound anti-tank gun. RyeField released their first Firefly back in 2019. However, this one is the late production version and will benefit from 5 years worth of advancement in design and moulding technology. Gecko models continue their journey into large-scale armour with the M24 Chaffee. Now, the M24 Chaffee was armed with a 75mm gun, similar to that on the early Shermans, giving a light tank unusually strong firepower for its class. Although it arrived too late to see widespread combat in World War II, its excellent mobility and reliability meant it served for decades, including extensive use in the Korean War and by many post-war armies. Around 1,100 Chafees reached US Army units before the end of World War II, with several hundred seeing actual combat in Europe in late 44, early 45. Now this is a World War II version and includes decals for World War II US Army and Free French Army troops. It includes a turned metal gun barrel including rifling in the bore, as well as workable track links and suspension. The fighting compartment comes with interior detail and it looks like it includes some limited stowage. The Chaffee weighed around 18 to 19 tonne, while a Sherman weighed around 30 to 33 tonne with a much wider hull and turret. The Chaffee was designed for a reconnaissance and light combat role rather than a frontline brawler like the Sherman, making this an interesting option for those armour modelers out there looking for something a little different in that larger scale. For a plane that was developed in 1958, it's hard to believe, but the Greek Air Force still fly Phantoms to this day. Granted, the Phantom they fly today is very different to the one from 1958. However, it speaks volumes into just how amazing the Phantom really is. Now, Meng released their first 48 scale Phantom back in 2022, and that was a Phantom F4G, a Phantom 2, and that kit achieved high praise from modelers around the world as they were generally well engineered with good fit and a high level of detail straight from the box. Meng have since built on that base with various modifications representing the different variants of this beast of a plane. This release is, of course, the F4E AUP Phantom 2 from the Hellenic Air Force. Now these Phantoms are unique mainly because they have been extensively upgraded and kept combat relevant far longer than almost any other Phantom fleet. But the thing that appeals to me the most is that beautiful Aegean Ghost camouflage scheme. It's not just visually striking, but purpose designed for that maritime environment, and it has become one of the most recognisable Phantom liveries in the world. The Greek Phantoms were worked hard in demanding operational conditions, tending to give them a very lived-in appearance and something that modelers will especially love. Eduard has just released a limited edition 48 scale Hind helicopter in a striking alien special livery. Now it's based on the Zvezda kit of the Hind, and of course they've added this huge custom decal sheet with extras that let you faithfully recreate the real world Mi-35 attack helicopter, painted in that unusual 2016 alien scheme used at a tiger meet in Zaragoza, Spain. Now what's a tiger meet, I hear you ask? Well, I had to do some looking myself, but a tiger meet is the annual multinational military aviation exercise, officially called the NATO Tiger Meet, where squadrons with a tiger in their name or emblem train together and showcase eye-catching special paint schemes. Who'd have known? Eduard claimed this is their largest decal sheet ever for a single scheme. Now the kit also comes with photo etch detail, masks and extra resin bits and pieces, plus a booklet on the history of the actual helicopter and its alien paint job, making this a real showpiece and limited edition rather than something that people are just going to buy off the shelf. Now, from what I understand, this is limited to 1,000 kits only, so it's aimed at those serious collectors and modelers who want something eye-catching and out of the ordinary rather than that basic production style of scheme. I adore the Hind as a subject, and aliens really left a lasting impression on me as a kid. So what's not to like about this one? So there you have it. What did I miss? Was there something in there that caught your eye? I'd love to know, so let me know in the comments down below. Plenty of movement over on the Patreon page, so a big thank you to my new members. Now I'm sharing regular content on that platform, so you can keep up to date with what I'm doing. Plus you can get in touch with me and we can talk about your latest project or reach out if you need a hand with anything. In other news, I'm super excited to announce I've just been asked to judge the armour category in the Malaysia Fletcher show at the Malcolm show in June later this year. Let me know if you're planning to go because I'd love to meet up there and say g'day. Lots of reviews, builds and all things modelling planned for this year, so be sure to stay tuned. Now remember guys, this is the greatest hobby in the world. Share it with your family and share it with your friends, and let's be proud of what we do. Until next time, I will see you soon.
If you refuse me, honey, you lose me, then you'll be...
That wasn't funny, man.